They weren't in distress. They weren't falling from the sky. They aimed for it. And they did a very good job. The Trade Center is torn open. There's a hole in the south side of the Trade Center, torn open from the impact of the plane, which fell into the street below.
Would that be the westernmost of the two towers?
The southernmost of the two towers.
Southernmost of the two towers.
Yes, yes. It's a big gaping hole in it. Flames and smoke have been pouring out since it happened about 5 minutes ago. I'm a little shaken because I saw the plane pass before my eyes. It was just about at my eye level. So.
How close to you?
A block and a half.
You say you saw the first plane fall down.
Yeah.
We're re-racking tape here, by the way, and I'm speaking to you, Mr. Schneider, but I'm showing tape right here of the second plane boring into the northernmost of the two towers. You say you saw the first plane fall down. What can you tell me about that plane?
Well, I didn't recognize it as a plane at first. It looked to me like a charred piece of metal, and I had thought that there was an explosion from within the Trade Center, so I thought what I was seeing was a piece of the Trade Center falling because the sheath of the Trade Center is metal. But since I've learned that the first explosion was caused by a plane crashing into the tower, I've assumed that what I saw was a piece of fuselage that was falling, and the plume of flame I saw shoot out would be consistent with jet fuel exploding.
So you really have no idea of how large a plane the first one was?
No, I didn't even know that was a plane. I learned that from the news media. But I definitely saw the second plane. I heard it sound, and I saw it streaming in from the south. I watched it crash into the Trade Center.
You said you're very afraid, and understandably so. They're not evacuating your building?
No. I'm going to leave on my own, but I haven't heard any decisions made to that effect.
Can you see the ground from your vantage point?
Oh, yes.
Talk to me about the scene on the ground, if you would.
Well, it's completely devoid of vehicles and people. The entire street is totally littered with paper and smoke, and several vehicles are on fire on Liberty Street in the parking lot where either fuel or pieces of the plane fell onto them after crashing into the Trade Center. There's a tremendous number of emergency vehicles here and continuing to arrive. I hear sirens from every side.
All right, Mr. Schneider, you've got a great vantage point. I'm going to ask you to hold on with me for a little while, if you would.
Okay, Mr. Gunn.
I know you're anxious to get out of the building. I'm not going to keep you forever, I promise.
Okay.
But let me ask you to sit tight for a second while I go to Washington, where Jim Stewart is standing by. He's got some official reaction. Jim, good morning. What are you hearing?
Good morning, Bryant. Well, as by happenstance, I was talking to FBI headquarters at the moment this explosion took place. They saw it occur as we saw it occur, the second explosion, rather, and their reaction was the same as everyone else. Number one, they noticed the clear weather there. Number two, they noticed what appeared to be, in their eyes, a deliberate attempt to crash the aircraft into the World Trade Center. Right now, they are trying to determine whether, in fact, it was deliberate. They have no information they can share at the moment, and I get the sense that they're in the same mode that we are, simply their mouth is their gate trying to figure out what's going on.
Jim, let me interrupt for just 1 second. I'm looking at a report that the FBI is investigating reports of a plane hijacking. Did you have any news of that?
No, we don't.
No confirmation of that whatsoever?
We have no confirmation
Is anybody
of
even
that.
there discussing that?
No, the only discussion that's been going on here, Bryant, is that the World Trade Center has obvious symbolic value. It's been a target before of terrorism, and frankly, it would not surprise the FBI or anyone in national security if it was a target again.
Sometimes the obvious leads you to a conclusion. We're looking at two crashes, 18 minutes apart, into an obvious target, a building that has never been hit with a plane before on a clear day. What do the intelligence people there say about that?
The intelligence community for some time has been warning in a steady drumbeat, Bryant, that Osama bin Laden has not been heard from now, frankly, since the beginning of the year, the USS Cole incident, rather, and they've been wondering when and if he will strike again, and they only believed it was a matter of time. And I believe that today that is going to be their first suspicion, but we have no confirmation of that. I must underline, there's no confirmation that this is a terrorist attack, number one, or number two, that it's Osama bin Laden involvement. But I can tell you right now, that is what they are thinking, that is the working premise, and we'll just have to see as the day unfolds what they discover.
Jim, as we sit here at 9:17, does the FBI have any choice but to sit and watch this on television?
I have never heard such a gasp of astonishment as I heard speaking to the FBI headquarters this morning when they saw what we saw, the explosion at the World Trade Center, the second explosion, and the smoke coming out of it. It reminded me and them of Oklahoma City. There's pure astonishment, I can tell you, at FBI headquarters this morning, and they are trying to find out the facts just as we are. Right now, they don't have any.
And as you noted, Jim, this has been a target before. Back on February 26, 93, a terrorist act at the World Trade Center killed 6 and injured more than 1,000 others. Do you know whether or not the FBI had received any warnings about attacks on domestic soil?
You know, frankly, no, and it's a question that we ask every day. I asked as recently as yesterday of the intelligence community what was the latest on terrorism threats in the United States, whether any intercept had been picked up, whether there was any current fear here that the next target would be within the United States. The answer came back no. They were still anticipating that the next strike against American interest would be overseas somewhere. Those are the most vulnerable targets. Today would clearly be some evidence that that's not the case at all. In clear weather, as you pointed out, what appears to be a deliberate attack into the heart of the financial district in New York City. You can't pick a more explicit message to send to America if you're a terrorist than what happened today. I stress again, though, this is pure speculation, but it is speculation right now by the people who are going to have to solve this crime, if in fact it is one, Brian.
That's a good point, Jim. At this point, it is pure speculation. The only thing we can tell you is we are looking at a very clear day in Manhattan on this Tuesday morning. We are looking at 2 towers of 110 stories in height that are on fire right now, that have absorbed 2 impacts with 18 minutes apart. Certainly, it's a little more than it would be an amazing coincidence, I think we should say.
Brian,
go ahead.
We've just been told that, and this should not be come as a surprise, it's standard procedure by the FBI. Their rapid deployment team from the Washington field office, this is a group of people that they send to major disaster and terrorist incidents, such as the twin embassy bombings in Africa. They have now been dispatched to New York. I have reason to believe, too, that some members of the HRT, that's the hostage rescue team, have been put on alert. We don't have any word yet that they would be sent. And these are standard procedures that would take place anytime a major terrorist incident occurs. But this would be a group of approximately 60 experts, people who are very good at picking up the bits of debris that we've been talking about falling on the streets of New York and turning that into evidence should they discover that this, in fact, was a deliberate act.
Jim, and if you don't know the answer to this, I understand, so I apologize up front for asking you. But do you know whether or not there are any federal offices in the World Trade Center at the upper levels?
I don't know that there are. I do not believe that there are. I believe that the FBI and the ATF, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms people are all closer to Midtown, but I don't know the precise answer to that.
So, in fact, if the buildings were targeted intentionally, this would be more symbolic than a direct attack on the federal government or its employees. Jim, let me ask you to sit tight for a second. I understand, Mr. Davis, you're back with me on the line?
I am.
And Miss Renault, you're also back on the line?
Sure.
Mr. Davis, bring us up to speed. What are you seeing? Anything changed?
No, but the smoke is getting thicker, and I can see flames from some of the windows on the first tower. My view of the second tower is somewhat obstructed.
Where are you, 50th and 5th?
I'm 50th and 5th.
Yeah. The officials there are anxious to in any way evacuate your building? Or is this just a normal work day?
I've been told that Rockefeller Center is putting into effect security measures, but we have not been told to evacuate.
Okay. And Miss Renault, what are you seeing right now?
From the southeast tower, there are still flames coming out of the north side of the building. It may be just my perspective, but it looks like something could be sticking out of that. Also, it looks like on the northwest tower that there's possibly, the fire and everything could have moved up because it seems to be that there's smoke coming out higher floors on the building.
You say there appears to be something out. That would be the second aircraft?
Yes.
The one at the lower level?
Yes.
And what actually do you see?
It just, there's an object that doesn't fit with the line of the building that seems to be protruding, and that's what's on fire.
We're getting a look at the building right now, and I must say the smoke seems to be obscuring our view enough so that we can't identify it. We're re-racking the tape right now. You see encircled there off on the right-hand side of your screen, this is the second plane. Obviously, the first plane has already collided with the top of the southernmost building, and now here comes the second plane. And you see, making no moves to evade the second tower, and then crashing into the second one. Ms. Renault, let me ask you to sit tight. Mr. Davis, you too, for a second. I want to go to Washington, where White House correspondent Bill Plant is standing by. Bill, what are you hearing on your end?
Brian, we're hearing that the president will have a statement to make shortly. He is in Florida this morning. He was supposed to do an educational event with children to push his education bill. We understand that that event has been canceled. There was a senior staff meeting here this morning. Nobody seems quite to know exactly what's going on. The National Security Council said earlier that it had heard nothing unusual. This was after the first airplane impact. We will hear from the president, we think, very shortly, to hear what he has to say and see what, if anything, they know about this, which appears to be so deliberate.
Bill, I asked Jim this earlier, and again, I apologize if you're not in a position to shed any more light on it, but do you know whether or not officials there at the White House had been forewarned that there was an imminent attack, or there was a heightened sense of alert? We're aware there had been for some time a heightened sense of alert throughout the Mideast, but I'm talking about domestically.
Well, we do know that there has been a heightened sense of alert. We do know that there have been a number of threats. There are always threats received. They have tended to take them recently a bit more seriously. But it does not appear, and I hesitate to make this for certain, but it does not appear that they had any advance warning that anything was going to happen today.
Again, this is all speculative, Bill, but are officials there working on the assumption that two planes crashing in the Twin Towers 18 minutes apart on a clear day, not an accident?
Hard to believe that they would think otherwise, but at the moment they seem just as mystified as we are. And as I said before, we do expect a statement from the president, who is down in Florida, sometime within the next few minutes.
All right, Bill, let me go back to Teresa Renault. Ms. Renault, I'm sorry I'd cut you off earlier, and I may again, by the way, if the president is ready to speak, but give us what you see from your vantage point again, if you would.
From the southeast building.
You're in Chelsea, correct?
Yes, I am. On the 14th floor, we have a 360-degree view. It's completely clear, straight shot. We have on the southeast building, on the north side, looks like the north corner, about the middle of the building. It is still very much in flames and smoke rising from that. I can't see as many flames coming out of the northwest building. Looks like, though, that the north side of the building and the west side of the northwest building have been opened up and still very much covered in smoke in the tops of the buildings.
And that the northwest side would be the building that absorbed the first impact, the higher of the two.
That's correct.
From our vantage point, it appears that the higher hole is a larger hole. Is that what you see?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I don't know if that's just a difference in perspective from where I am, because that is the closer building to me.
Certainly it's staggered. You're correct.
Yes.
But we had heard an earlier report, unconfirmed, that the first plane appeared to be a 737. The plane we saw, yes, absent any perspective, seemed to be a smaller plane.
I would say the explosion upon impact was much larger on the first hit than the second.
You heard both?
Yes, I saw the impact on the second building. I saw the explosion come from the building on the first one. Mm-hmm.
You're at Chelsea and 14th.
Yes. It's like a 16th and 8th Avenue.
Yeah, I'm sorry, on the 14th floor. I apologize.
Yes,
not on 14th. You're a considerable ways away. Any effort there to evacuate your building?
Not at this point, no.
Mr. Davis, tell us the mood where you are. We were talking to a gentleman earlier who was in a high-rise closer to the World Trade Center, and he was genuinely afraid, and understandably so.
Well, it is shocking. Very shocking to have witnessed. Perhaps we can be somewhat more sympathetic to what Israel is suffering at the moment.
But they have not moved people out of your building?
No.
You said you're at Rockefeller Center, that security actions have been put into place. What do those entail?
I really did not know, but we have not been told to evacuate.
All right. Jim Stewart, back in Washington, you still with us? Oh, Bill, you're still with us, right?
I am, Brian.
What word are you hearing on when the president's going to come forward?
We were just told that the president will have something to say down in Florida any minute. He is in Florida. We believe that his education event, which was scheduled for this morning, has been canceled. But the White House is saying that the president will have something to say. Then he'll leave Florida and come right back to Washington, Brian.
Bill, had his people, Condi Rice, Colin Powell, his security people, his foreign affairs people, ever discussed this kind of a scenario?
I don't know for certain, but I would be very surprised if they had not talked about it. This kind of what-if disaster planning is a staple in Washington, and particularly at senior levels. And I think that these sorts of things are gamed, examined, and talked about, and everyone hopes they will never happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, in this case, it would seem to have gone against hopes. Again, let's bring everyone up to speed. As best we can tell, wow, we just had another view of the second plane going in. As best we can tell, at 8:45 this morning, an aircraft plowed into the uppermost levels of one of the Twin Towers. An eyewitness has defined that plane, has told us that plane was a 737, but that is unconfirmed. And then moments later, 18 minutes later, a second aircraft, the one you saw just there, plowed into the other Twin Tower at a lower level. That plane, we have no idea of its size. We have no idea if these were intentional acts. We have no idea if these are private planes or commercial aircraft. We have an unconfirmed report from the Associated Press that the FBI was investigating reports of a plane hijacking shortly before the crash into the World Trade Center. Let's go to Florida. President Bush has a statement.
Down in Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a difficult moment for America. I unfortunately will be going back to Washington after my remarks. Secretary of Rod Pace and Lieutenant Governor will take the podium and discuss education. I do want to thank the folks here at Booker Elementary School for their hospitality. Today we've had a national tragedy. Two airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
We've been watching President Bush, who was down in Florida for what was supposed to be an educational event. Instead, he is racing back to Washington as we speak. The president making a very brief statement in Sarasota, calling it an apparent terrorist attack on our nation. Again, that is unconfirmed, and promising the full resources of the federal government to not only help the victims, but also to investigate. And before asking people to pray with him, the president's saying that this act will not stand. As he was speaking, we got a report from Reuters that a plane was hijacked from Boston. A plane out of Boston was hijacked. But again, that is unconfirmed. We had a report earlier from the Associated Press that there had been a hijacking. Now Reuters is reporting that a plane out of Boston was hijacked. An American Airlines aircraft, we understand, was the plane that was hijacked. This would be in keeping with an earlier eyewitness report that the first plane that plowed into the into the World Trade Center was a 737. Former FBI agent James Kallstrom covered the World Trade Center bombing back in 1993. He is with us on the line right now. Jim, good morning.
Good morning.
You've been watching this. Talk to me.
I shouldn't say good morning. It's not a good morning.
No, I apologize. Go ahead.
I don't really know much about it, but it sure looks to me like a deliberate act of terrorism. And I mourn the loss of the lives that I'm sure are going to follow this.
I've got a lot of questions for you, James. Let me kind of take you through them if I could. Because you investigated and worked on the original terrorist incident, or I should say the terrorist incident back in 1993, can you tell me if these buildings have any special significance by virtue of who's working in them?
Well, I don't think it's so much who's working them. I think the towers symbolize largely. There's many other symbols also, but the World Trade Center is a symbol. That was one of the original reasons that Ramzi Youssef and the rest of that gang wanted to do the World Trade Center as a symbol of America. So sure, there's other symbols, but I think this is probably the tallest one on the East Coast.
Again, all of this is unconfirmed. We heard the president call it an apparent terrorist attack. At this moment, have you any doubt that's exactly what it is?
No, I have no doubt of that. I would call it an apparent attack. I think there's probably an infinitesimal chance it isn't, but it certainly doesn't appear that it could be. Commercial airliners, number one, are not going to direct themselves into a square hit on the World Trade Center. If there's some sort of a mayday or something wrong with the plane, they're going to try to ditch it elsewhere. They're not going to do that. And if the reports of a second plane hitting the building are true, then I think that probably caps off exactly what this is. It's a cowardly act of terrorism.
How restricted is the airspace around the World Trade Center?
I'm not an FAA person, but
no,
I mean, you cannot fly through that airspace unless you're a helicopter, or unless you're anything really, without being guided by air traffic control. It's highly restrictive.
So the possibility that two planes on a clear day just happened to wander into these buildings.
I think that's beyond the pale.
Yeah, that's not a possibility. Again, you worked on evacuating these buildings. You saw what happened when they were evacuated. How many people are we talking about from what you can see on those upper levels?
Do we know exactly what time this first event happened?
We're guessing. We're putting it at about 8:45, Mr. Kallstrom.
Yeah,
again, that's only by eyewitnesses.
Yeah, Brian, I think we're talking literally hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people affected by this. I mean, the smoke alone in the other floors, and the when you compare the bombing in the basement of that building, which for a number of hours we weren't sure it was a bomb. We thought maybe it was some sort of a transformer blowing up, to what's reported at least as a 737 type size airplane, something that size, hitting the first tower, and then some smaller plane hitting the second. I mean, this is geometrically more catastrophic.
Difficult building extraordinary, obviously, because of the height of the buildings, but the plans in place for evacuation, are they, from your experience, state of the art?
I think they are. I think the whole security of that building, both from a physical security standpoint and from an evacuation standpoint, was certainly reinvented and looked after after that tragedy that happened back in the early 90s. And they're probably as good as they can be. But having said that, you're talking about one of the tallest structures, or two of the tallest structures in the United States. And whether or not the elevators are working, they're probably not. They're not used in case of fire. You've got a massive evacuation problem on your hands.
Would it be highly unusual, Mr. Kallstrom, for these attacks, if that's what they were, to have taken place without some degree of advance warning?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, the FBI and law enforcement, the people that come to work every day and suffer through immense criticism when little things go wrong, these are the days that everyone hopes that they have a very formidable, highly motivated FBI and law enforcement team. And I suspect we do. And these are the things that they try to not have happen. These are the things they try to have the intelligence to avoid happening. International terrorism, if that is what this is, and I don't know what it is very hard to penetrate, because it's not very, it doesn't have a hierarchy of authority, and it's cellular, and it's a lot of different people motivated for religious type reasons, hatred reasons, and you can necessarily not know a lot about what's going on in an agency if you're in at some level, because it's so segmented.
Again, I'm getting a report now that it was a United Airlines plane that plowed into the building. We don't know whether that negates the American Airlines reported hijacking or whether or not that was a second plane. So at this point, we're getting different reports. Go ahead, Mr. Kelso.
Yeah, I mean, you telling me that, Brian, if that is a commercial airline, a United or American or whatever it is, you know, that, I mean, my initial thought there is that this plane was somehow commandeered by somebody, hijacked, taken over, and flown into the building. I don't know that for a fact, but that's certainly what it looks like.
Yeah, as I'm looking at the second tape right here, and I don't know if you're watching on the line with us, that is definitely a commercial-sized aircraft.
Yeah.
Now that we've blown it up.
Yeah.
In size.
You know, it's beyond belief, but it's not beyond belief. I mean, we've seen this hatred find its way into the embassy bombings in Africa. We've seen this hatred at the USS Cole. We've seen it at the World Trade Center in '93. We've seen it around the world in acts that take place almost every day. And, you know, for this to then transform itself into this size of an incredible tragedy, to me, although I certainly would never expect it, never ever want it to happen, is not that unbelievable.
Yeah, James Kallstrom, let me ask you to sit tight for a second, if you would. Brian Jenkins, a terrorism expert who's been with us quite a few times, as I understand, on the line. Brian, you there?
Yes, I am.
Talk to me.
Well, obviously, you know, we don't know the details of what happened yet. We should have details coming out fairly quickly, though, as to the identity of this aircraft. We're talking about crowded airspace in New York with major airports in the area, both in the immediate area of New York and in the surrounding cities. There should be information fairly quickly that will identify these particular aircraft. And indeed, we should be able to confirm fairly quickly as to the identity of the jet, and perhaps even some last second broadcasts that may indicate what happened.
Mr. Jenkins, I'm going to interrupt for just one second because we're getting word that they are evacuating the White House down in Washington right now.
Well, this is not surprising. I mean, first of all, an action of this magnitude is something that does suggest a great deal of planning and preparation. In some of these recent actions, we have seen multiple coordinated operations.
But who's capable of this kind of planning and preparation?
There are a number of you know, terrorist organizations around the world that would be capable of this, based primarily in the Middle East. But it's too early, really, to speculate as to the identity. Certainly.
But is there any doubt in your mind that what we're looking at here is the aftermath of a coordinated terrorist incident?
You know, to explain. In any as happenstance.
Hold it, Mr. Jenkins. We're looking. There are two jets right now approaching the World Trade Center. We're watching. Hold on. I'm sorry. No, the one aircraft is cleared. We can't tell whether it was a plane or a chopper from our vantage point. I apologize, Mr. Jenkins.
No, that's okay.
We're more than a bit gun shy. We're seeing aircraft off to the right side of our picture. We're going to assume at this point that is a copter or is aircraft to get a better vantage point. But having seen one go plow in for a second time, we're a little bit wary. Go ahead. I apologize.
We are breaking into this special live coverage of what's happening at the World Trade Center in New York to tell you about something going on right here at the Pentagon. You are looking at both pictures. The smoke that you see on the left-hand side of your screen is right here in the Washington area at the Pentagon.
Looks like the helipad area of the Pentagon over towards 395. There were there were reports of an explosion. People said the building shook.
They felt the building shake, and they're evacuating that building. We're also getting word that the White House may be under an evacuation order right now. Again, we don't know exactly what happened here at the Pentagon, but you can see the result of whatever it was near the area of the heliport is lots of billowing smoke, dark smoke, and workers reported hearing something and then feeling the area rumble.
What do you hear, Tom? There is construction work going on there.
We don't know what is the cause of this smoke, but we are keeping you updated on this story, and of course the breaking story in New York where one of two planes we're now hearing that crashed into the World Trade Center was hijacked after takeoff from Boston.
On the left.
On the left is the Pentagon. And on the right is the World Trade Center, where reports now from AP say that one of the two planes that crashed into the World Trade Center towers was hijacked after takeoff.
President Bush has called the World Trade Center explosions apparent terrorist attacks. Again, on the left of your screen.
Now we're hearing that the Associated Press is quoting witnesses as saying it was an aircraft that crashed into the Pentagon. And that is what we're looking at right now from Arlington, Virginia. Our Gannett cam looking at this huge billowing dark smoke. A plane.
So we got two planes that plowed into the World Trade Center up in New York. Now we've got a plane that plowed into the Pentagon here in Arlington. Stay with us. We're going to get you more information just as soon as we can. Apparently, the Pentagon being evacuated.
There are reports that the White House may be under an evacuation order as well. The West Wing of the White House has been evacuated, according to AP, amid terrorist threats. That's the AP News alert just moved across the wires.
The Pentagon, this is a live shot from the Gannett camera atop the Gannett building in Roslyn of the Pentagon. You can't see the Pentagon for all the smoke.
And again, just word that the West Wing of the White House has been evacuated amid terrorist threats. And of course, the other story, the picture you see on the right is the World Trade Center still spewing smoke from the two planes that crashed into the towers.
We have no word yet of casualties either here at the Pentagon or in New York.
But we did have some eyewitness reports of people on the ground from the spray of jet fuel on fire on the ground.
It's not going to be good. Dave Staddard is on the phone with us now. Dave, where are you? Dave, can you hear me? All right,
Lauren, are you there? Lauren, Lauren Ashburn from USA Today. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Andrea.
Lauren, we understand you witnessed what happened at the Pentagon?
Yes, I did.
We're
standing in the USA Today towers at 1000 Wilson Boulevard, and as we were getting ready to record, we watched what appeared to be a huge explosion over top of the Pentagon. At that point, we were immediately told to evacuate the USA Today towers. As many people know, they're very tall towers that overlook Washington tall silver towers. And the picture that you're seeing right now is actually taken from a camera that is on top of the USA Today building.
We're getting a report, Lauren. See if you can confirm this. An Associated Press reporter saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the Pentagon. Could you tell what type of aircraft?
We could not tell what type of aircraft it was. The only thing we could see was a huge cloud of smoke and what looked like some flames at the onset of that. We couldn't see, as you can, I don't know if you can hear right now, but emergency trucks, I've seen about 20, 25 of them screaming down Route 110 here in front of the USA Today headquarters.
All right, Lauren, stay on the phone with us, can you?
Lauren, where are you now?
I am on the 18th floor of Tower 1 of USA Today headquarters building, looking out onto the Potomac River.
And you said they've evacuated from upper floors, or they're trying to evacuate everybody in the USA Today buildings?
At this point, they are evacuating everybody in the USA Today building in both towers, both Gannett Broadcasting and USA Today.
The West Wing of the White House and the Capitol building have both been evacuated. Again, repeating, the West Wing of the White House and the U.S. Capitol building have both been evacuated. This following 3 terrorist attacks, 2 on the World Trade Center up in New York, and the terrorist attack you're looking at here at the Pentagon. Apparently, according to Associated Press, an AP reporter saw the plane. He says it was a large airliner which plowed into the Pentagon.
All right, Lauren, thank you very much.
Yes, well,
you've got anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Lauren. We'll get back to you safely from the ground.
I saw the tail of a large airliner. It plowed into the Pentagon. That's according to Associated Press radio reporter. There's billowing black smoke, which you can obviously see. This is incredible.
The West Wing, again, of the White House and the U.S. Capitol building have both been evacuated amid concerns over terrorist threats. The White House threatened with terrorist attacks is the reason for the evacuation. We had not heard earlier. People were asking FBI officials whether there had been any word, any hints, any leaks of possible terrorist action, and no one was confirming anything. Again, this just moving. One of the 2 planes that crashed into the World Trade Center in New York, which is the picture you're looking at now, was hijacked after takeoff from Boston, a U.S. official said, citing a transmission from that plane.
And I believe, Andrea, this AP alert, White House threatened with terrorist attack. That must... I think that's something that was probably just released, that there was a direct threat on the White House. Again, the West Wing has been evacuated. The U.S. Capitol building has been evacuated.
Joining us by phone now is Don Chauncey. Don, are you there?
Yes, I am.
You witnessed what happened at the Pentagon. What did you see?
From my office, I was able to see a white jet, like a Gulfstream type commuter jet, I guess, just came at a high rate of speed. I can see National Airport's tower from our office.
Right.
And it just increased its speed as it got closer to the Pentagon, and then I just saw the big yellow ball of fire.
Don, exactly where is your office? From where are you watching this?
Our office is right at St. Barnabas Road in the Beltway, so I overlook the Beltway from my office.
Could you tell, Don, did the plane come out of National?
No.
No, it did not.
No, absolutely not. There was it appeared to be a U.S. Air commuter jet that went over top of our building, which is a normal flight pattern, I guess, for the commuters.
Yeah.
And this looked like it was coming from, I'm guessing, down Columbia Pike in Arlington, down that way, and then just picked up a high rate of speed. I mean, from my desk right now, I can see the Pentagon, basically where the metro station is and the buses. I can see that to the right, but I can't see I guess, the south parking area.
Right.
Don, what's the reaction of others in your office? I mean, watching the World Trade Center and then seeing this right literally in your own backyard.
Well, myself and another co-worker that sits beside us, both of us were actually on the phone looking out the window when it happened, and both of us dropped the phone, and we picked it back up and said, we have to go. It looked like there was a plane crash either at the airport or at the Pentagon.
Don, hold on with us for a second. We're just getting this bulletin. The Federal Aviation Administration has shut down all aircraft takeoffs nationwide. All aircraft takeoffs nationwide have been halted by the FAA.
We have Dawn on the phone now, who was another witness to what happened at the Pentagon. Dawn, can you hear us? Dawn?
Hello?
Yes, Dawn. This is Andrea in the newsroom with Mike Buchanan. What did you see?
I saw it was an American Airlines 757, and it came in and hit the heliport, came down Columbia Pike and hit the heliport next to the Pentagon. I live in an apartment building on that side of the Pentagon, and it just crashed right into it. I don't know if it damaged the side of the Pentagon, but the Pentagon doesn't look that badly damaged, but I know it hit at least the heliport on the side of the Pentagon.
You said it was a 757. How could you tell? How could you see that?
Yes, I could see it. And my roommate is an airplane person, and he saw it too. I mean, we saw the whole thing.
Okay.
Did it didn't come out of National? It came in from the west.
It came right down Columbia Pike. It came right down
Columbia Pike.
Low and with throttles on.
With the full throttle?
Yeah. He actually added power right by the Sheridan.
And that's what we heard from Don as well. Added power and went straight for the Pentagon. So this was no accident.
No.
It was deliberate.
This was aimed right at it. But unfortunately, I think it hit the heliport and didn't look like it damaged too much of the Pentagon.
All right, Dawn, thank you very much for calling us with that.
Andrea, hey, listen, yeah, thank you very, very much. We have a man named Sean on the line who, I'm sorry, sir, your name, please?
Sean Lansdowne.
What'd you see, Sean?
I was sitting in my bedroom back at home, and
Where's that, sir?
it's right in Arlington. I'm like 4 minutes away from the Pentagon.
Right.
And I was sitting in my living room, and my building started shaking, and I knew that no plane supposed to make my building shake. Well, when I turned around and looked up, I see this plane, and I agree with the young lady that was just speaking. It was like a 757.
Sean, we're going to stop you because Dave Statter is now on the scene. We've heard from others that it's a 757. Dave, are you there?
I'm here, the west side of the Pentagon, the helicopter port off of Washington Boulevard. Plane into the side of the building. There's a bit of a hole on that side of the building. Arlington Fire and Rescue, military fire on the scene putting foam on it. The plane did not seem to go into the building like the World Trade Center attacks. It seemed more to glance the side of it and certainly do some damage to the left side of the building. But it's right, if anybody's coming up Washington Boulevard, which is still open amazingly, northbound, it's right where the helipad is. Believe this when I tell you, everybody here is scanning the skies looking for a possible attack. Every fire and rescue crew has been told to be aware of that. Every police officer has been told to be aware of that. We cannot tell you at the moment, and as far as casualties, any injuries at the moment.
Dave, so it hit more the helipad than it did the building?
It definitely hit the building. Something hit the building, certainly, but it did not seem to be a gaping hole like we saw at the World Trade Center. I can't even tell you what size plane it is because it's pretty much consumed. Should be getting a live picture from us shortly. We're trying to call it in now. We do have a microwave truck here, so we should be able to give you some live pictures and you can look for yourself. Right now, looks like National Airport Fire Department is that, or is I can't tell yet. It's Metropolitan Airport Fire Department is putting foam on this side of the Pentagon to try to put out the fire. As of a few minutes ago, there was still a great amount of fire. The fire has lessened somewhat.
All right.
Get a picture up.
All right, Dave, we'll let you go for just a second. I want to tell you the White House has been evacuated.
The entire White House. Not just the West Wing. And again, we want to let you know that the Federal Aviation has shut down all airplane traffic nationwide.